Now, a year since the ruthless terror group Islamic State declared a caliphate in parts of Iraq and Syria. This map we're about to see now shows just how far the group's self-styled caliphate has spread in that time. ISIL now occupies a large area across Syria and across Iraq, despite thousands of coalition airstrikes. It's also forged connections with other extremist groups too, and it's extended its influence by building a network of sympathisers in the Middle East and North Africa. What's more, they've proved frighteningly successful in the process too. Back in June 2014, the group declared the establishment of a caliphate straddling Iraq and Syria. They took control of the Iraqi town of Mosul. Thousands were killed, hundreds of civilians were displaced. And across the border in Syria, ISIL militants also killed scores of civilians in the town of Kobani. This year, they captured Iraq's largest oil refinery and gained control over huge oil resources. Surprisingly, maybe, last year, the US president dismissed members of the group as a JV team, suggesting they didn't really present a deadly threat. A year on, and Barack Obama's mood has changed decidedly.
At this moment, the greatest threats come from the Middle East and North Africa, where radical groups exploit grievances for their own gain. And one of those groups is ISIL.
For some, it's interference from the Western coalition in the region that contributed to Islamic State's expansion in the first place, of course. The US and its allies have deployed hundreds of military personnel to expand training for the moderate rebels, as they were described in Syria. They've also sent military equipment to help local fighters battle President Assad's regime. That's despite evidence of Syrian opposition fighters defecting to Islamic State. Although Western media seem solely focused on the ones, though, who aren't turning to ISIL.
There is a significant amount of moderate rebels ready to take to the ground in Syria and go after ISIS and Bashar al-Assad.
Escalating power struggle between the moderates and hardline Islamists.
Moderate Syrians who are going to fight against ISIS, as well as fighting against potentially Assad of Syria.
Meanwhile, Islamic State's been recruiting growing numbers from Europe too. Recent research estimates that 1,200 French nationals, for instance, have joined. Many others have left their countries too to join fighting battalions or even take up operational jobs. Let's talk now to Marwa Osman about this. Middle East political commentator. I was about to hand to her. I gather we've lost the line. We'll try and get back to her just a little bit later in the programme to get some more thoughts from her. We have earlier on spoken, though, to Professor Sriram Chalia from the Jindal School of International Affairs, who says the American-led coalition of Western nations bears responsibility for the rise of the terrorist group. Let's listen.
It's been annus horribilis for the international community, led by the United States effort to bomb ISIS and to try and force it into submission. It's not worked. So unfortunately, ISIS has grown territorially, financially, and ideologically over the last 12 months. And it's a sign that something is seriously wrong with this effort, the piecemeal effort that's been made by the US and some of its allies. So in many ways, they have to owe responsibility for it. It was a part of the blundering of the global war on terrorism of George W. Bush. And I think President Obama has been relatively better in terms of trying to pull out of Iraq. But by the time he pulled out 2011, the damage was already done.